There are three stories superimposed in the Bible. I've mentioned this before. I've also mentioned that I'll share with you a couple of different views that I happen to have discovered. Now, it may be different than contemporary, but there are things which I believe have relevancy and value. Now, one is in reference to the two creations in the Bible. Now, one creation is that of male and female, where it goes for it says, God said, let us make man in our image, so in the image of God, he made he him, male and female, he created he them. Now, later he goes on and says, in Genesis 2:21, that man was not meant to be alone, so he put Adam into a deep sleep, took a rib from Adam and made Eve, then presented Eve to Adam, and Adam named her woman, for she was made from his womb. Now, based off of these two different accounts, that produces two different women, or does it? Well, in some texts, in other portions of the world, they refer to the first woman created as having been evil, said her name is Lilith. Okay? And they refer to her as Adam's first wife. Now, at the same time, is it possible that Eve may actually be something different within itself? When people take the time and start to really look at the nature of events in their own existence, they'll see we all have experienced similar things. Maybe not exactly the same, but quite a bit of similarities, especially when it comes down to the dream of falling, being afraid of the dark, imaginary friends, deja vu. But is that possible? It could be also telling you the process with which you end up in the body you're in. Now, it's called the spark of life in one sense. Some texts, such as in Hinduism, they refer to it as, a past life, reincarnation. Well, let's take that idea and apply it to Eve for a minute, and let's see if it makes sense. Because the scripture should make sense. It shouldn't be something that you speculate, because if you suffer for the lack of knowledge, then why don't you apply all the knowledge to all the scriptures as it says? It says all scripture is good for setting things straight and reproachment. So let's look at it from a different angle. And a rib is not necessarily the rib of the human body. A rib is also of the human body is referred to as the thoracic cavity. Now, you, however, can look at a spool of wire, and if you cut that wire and fray it open, you'll find that one singular strand is called a rib. It's also the same with light. If you fraction one off out of a ray of light into singular colors, that's also called a rib. Now, we, in fact, were made from the thought of a creation, a higher being, if you will. And therefore, a thought is electrical. And if you look at it from that aspect, then let us once again consider, if your life is living out in a ray, and it leads through various circuit boxes, if once that wire is cut, the circuit box would close. Now, the reason is because it will blow the circuit. But at the same time, that electricity would hover around that box. Now, if you look at life that way, if at your death you were actually placed into a deep sleep, and the best portion of you, a rib, was pulled to in turn produce another you, that would be conceivably in conjunction with the beliefs of Hinduism. But taking that rib of light, that is the actual fact of the process that you experience in that dream. For in that dream, or what scientists refer to as a nightmare of falling, what occurs at that time period is you see a city, a street, then you see a house, and you find yourself falling in darkness towards the light and you wake up. Now, scientists will explain to you that it is imperative that that dream take place, for as a result of it, it allows your neural pathways for the next 28 or so days to expand. For were the neural pathways not to expand, you die of stress within a couple of years. And we all know stress kills. So with that in mind, let's look at that again. What actually happens is that prior to that dream, what you're not aware of, because it all happens before you're 2 years and 3 months old, your body needs to build up testosterone. And as the testosterone builds up in the human body, what it eventually will do is it will trigger the brainstem, causing the pineal gland to open. Up until that point, you are still asleep because you're functioning in accordance to the rudimentary movements of the body. People feed you, they take care of you, they do everything for you, but you're really not functioning at your highest capacity until your pineal gland kicks in. Now, it's strange that the pituitary and the hypothalamus produce a totally different hormone than the pineal gland. The pineal gland produces its own hormone that is connected with your stomach and your intestines. Now, that means you have one that's positive and one that's negative. And the fact of the two working just like a light bulb, when it happens to wake up, so do you, because you are your awareness. You're not your brain. You're not your mind. You are the awareness that moves through your mind. So let's look at that. So now that your awareness is kicked in, the Eve of you is here. The eve of your awakening. So now you are what we refer to as conscious. So now that you're conscious, it's interesting how shortly after that, you become afraid of the dark. Now, you will have slept in a room with your brothers or sisters, maybe by yourself, for months on end. However, one night you'll yell out, and your family come running in there, your mom or dad, and they'll be like, what's wrong? You'll be somebody standing there. Now, something you may not have shared with them is in reality, you actually saw a pair of eyes looking back at you. And so if such was the case, which I'm sure it was, that you actually saw a pair of eyes looking at you, you have to remember the word Eve is also another word for night, for darkness. That's why we refer to it as evening. So here it is, you're looking at the remainder of that electricity that sat around that circuit breaker box, because you forget that you're born and your brain is a blank slate. So how did that get there, that memory of falling? Because that's what you experienced. You didn't see it on TV and you forgot you didn't have a body. And so now moving forward, the remainder of that electricity, since your neural pathways have expanded, it can be absorbed into your subconscious. Why? Because your subconscious records everything, whether you're aware of it or not. Whether it's real or fake, it never shuts off. But it's interesting as well that that is the time period when your parents might give you a toy or something, or something that you might really find soothing, and that will become your favorite toy. And if you're not actually sitting there playing with that toy, talking to yourself, you're making the voice of that toy. But it's interesting, at that time period, did you notice how a child's vocabulary picks up, how they start using words and phrases that you had never heard? Sometimes you ask them, they might even have a name for that imaginary friend they're playing with. But you don't ever really inquire any further. Now, it's interesting how the Dalai Lama is picked to become the Dalai Lama. It's the same process. They have so many toys of a previous Dalai Lama. And it's exactly 3 items. And the child will pick amongst those who they have as candidates. They put them in a special area and have them pick certain things. This is how they're able to tell who they were in their former self. So looking at it this way, we're also creatures of habit. So in the sense of being a creature of habit, you are always going to perform things a certain way after you have learned it a certain way. Wash your car a certain way, You dry your clothes, you dry your ass a certain way. But the thing is consider this. If you drove down the street consistently and made a left every day to go to work, and suddenly one day you made it right, why is it that sometimes you'll have flashes of images in your mind showing you things regarding this area you're in, and you know you've never been here before? See, the reason that happens is because, just as the case as they choose a Dalai Lama, it's no different with your existence. You cross the path of your former self, and your subconscious, which has absorbed the previous you, now shows images to your conscious self of things it once did, because it's a habit it used to perform. And now when you see it, your awareness is at a loss, because your awareness was asleep and has been. So when you look at the world we live in now, and you look at the things within which we are participating in, is it possible that our understanding of some of the things within the scriptures has been just slightly misinterpreted? I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. But I'm sharing with you something I know for a fact you didn't see. Because think of it. He in turn presented Eve to Adam, and he named her woman, for she was made from his womb. Men don't have wombs, unless of course you're thinking of something from our mind within which we can create. And it's a remarkable fact that all humans have a tendency to create an image of another person based off of something they believe that has nothing to do with who that person is. Just saying. Something to think about.